So nearby everyone, what's your favourite Terminator robo?
A roboter.
Robot.
I like the T1, those shitty little ones that wheel around and clearly aren't better than just guns.
Just Johnny 5.
Giant Johnny 5.
According to the movies in which they play the title role, the Terminator is a nigh-indestructible blend of science and technology powered by a genocidal AI that's already curb-stomped about 95% of humanity. Something that probably has a lot to do with the fact that the Terminator is actually more efficient and capable of murdering when it's a flaming skeleton.
Just like me.
Really?
Have you tested this theory out?
You're going to get a scorpion it up?
Do we want to get Brad on camera and test this theory?
I am the Ghost Rider.
Yeah, favourite skeleton? Not including the Fiend skeleton.
It's alright. Skeleton.
That's the thing, there's so many good fiction. I'm like, nah, it's just that everyone loves it. Everyone loves it.
The one in Corpse Bride who sings the song.
I don't know that film.
But we all end up with the remains of
Not
Jack Skeleton. Maybe.
Or Daniel Fortescue. Daniel Fortescue's a fucking good
When
skeleton.
you first asked it, I was thinking, there's not that many skeletons.
And then there's like, there's so many skeletons. There's a skeleton on your shirt right now. You have a skeleton on your shirt. And you're like, there's not many skeletons. In specific regards to the Terminator, we're talking about the T-800 or the T-850 in some of the versions, like but Model 101, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator. And how familiar are you with the functioning of the Terminator?
Not much with the functioning itself.
Mm-hmm. Like, you guessing you've seen the films though, and you can tell what you've seen in the films, where it's like, it's a metal endoskeleton covered by.
Is it Terminators as well that have like the nuclear explosive option?
That's the 850.
That's the 850.
So I had to fact check these back in the day because people get really weird about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Terminator 1 and 2 is the 800.
And the T-850?
850 is Terminator 3, but they're all Model 101. That's the skin.
That's the Arnold. So model is like the skin that goes on top of the Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then the T-800 has just like, it powers itself, as we're about to talk, in numerous ways. And there's a T-850, which has the nuclear bombs inside of it. Mm-hmm. And then they had to, the fact check that we had to do for that is that I asked, why doesn't the Terminator in Terminator 1 just blow itself up? It's like, well, that's technically a different kind of Terminator. It's like, no, it's poor writing. Just say poor writing.
It's just like, could you not just go back in time? Send 1,000 T-850s back and just wherever, whatever state John Connor lives in, just blow it up. Well, just nuke it.
The Terminator franchise is one of those ones where every subsequent film just raises more questions about why didn't you just?
Yeah.
Yes.
With the release of Terminator 2, why don't you just send T-1000s back? And we've had to talk before about the T-1000, they had to write an in-universe reasons why they can't send more. Because the T-1000 is fucking unstoppable. All you need to see is what happens to the T-1000 when Arnold Schwarzenegger punches it, and his fist goes through it, and then it kicks his ass. What about the TX, the supposed upgrade on it in T3? When he punches that, he knocks it out.
Yeah.
It's but so they had to explain in a book or something. The T-1000 is actually so good that Skynet stopped making them because they would immediately gain sentience and run away.
Well, yeah, it's they're
What? That's the reason?
They're scared of the T-1000.
Yeah, the reasoning is that the T-1000 would gain sentience alarmingly fast, and then would decide not to help Skynet, and then would run away. So Skynet stopped making them, and that's what they had to bullshit that explanation why they don't just keep sending them back, because they're so much better than anything else.
Again, what are you going to do against 1,000 T-1000?
Nothing, you die.
There's so many other things they could send back as well. Why send a Terminator back? Is there a rule where they're not allowed to change their own creation so they can only kill Sarah Connor? In the first one, because they could have just sent one of the big flying things back.
No, they say you can't send anything metal back, it has to be covered with flesh.
Yeah. Even though the T-1000 doesn't have skin.
No, it's metal. And that's what I mentioned, every subsequent Terminator film introduces new plot holes that have to be covered by extra universe information, like the one we're talking about today, which comes from the novelisation of the original Terminator movie, which answers a number of questions that nobody but the most nitpicky of fans like myself would ever ask.
Is the candy thing in it?
The candy thing comes from the original script, not the novelisation. So
what's the candy thing?
There was an original version of the script where the Terminator eats candy with the wrappers on, because that's how he feeds his weird organs that keep his skin alive.
Right.
Which is not in any extra universe information we're talking about, but the original script said that the Terminator has organs about the size of a chicken. Has a tiny little heart, a tiny little stomach, and these are nonetheless organic, so they need to be powered by organic sources. So they had a scene in the original script where the T-800 would just shove an entire Mars bar into its mouth, wrapper and all.
See, I was picturing like Arnold Schwarzenegger going to like a chicken farm and pecking at the feed.
Just the
Just Arnie there, like.
Understand when they wrote that out because like that it doesn't make the Terminator look very threatening when it's just like wolfing down a candy bar in one go.
That would though.
That would, yeah.
If you saw a man bending over and pecking the ground.
Yeah. So one of the bits of information that I really like is it explains how the Terminators see. So when you see the film, you see from the eyes of the Terminator, you see like all in red. And fun fact, that's called thermovision.
Oh, come on.
Yes, that's the thing. You all grown, but I love that. Thermovision. And this novelization reveals that the Terminator can see the same way that we would, in like the same visual spectrum that we're able to, but it chooses not to because that consumes too much power. So to conserve power, it views the world in infrared.
That's fair enough because like you think about even nowadays what our batteries are like.
Mm-hmm.
Something that size, like my Switch can't play games for more like 6 hours. How are you going to power an entire Terminator? Like, endlessly. They pretty much never show a need to recharge.
Yeah, they say they can function for about 200 to 300 years without ever needing to recharge.
That's bullshit. Like, 6 hours in, he'd be out.
It's clearly got like solar panels in.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because they have numerous like.
Sunbathing.
Well, you're not far off there, Brad, because this novelization explains that the Terminator has many different ways it can power itself besides its already quite formidable internal power cells, and one of them is the addition of heat sinks. And these heat sinks are capable of absorbing and redistributing heat as energy to power its cells, and that's the in-universe explanation why the Terminator in Terminator 2 wakes back up. Like Joe and Arnold Schwarzenegger seemingly dies, he's on the ground, but then he wakes back up and you see him rebooting himself. There's no explanation for that in the film. But in the novel, they say that the ambient energy of the steel factory, all that heat, because the steel factory is so hot, it absorbs that into its heat sinks and uses it to reboot itself.
How powerful it must have been when it got in the lava.
I was
Like,
going to say.
into the
So
Well, that's what makes it so weird. It's like, and that's one of the weird things about this explanation of like, heat is one of the few things shown to be able to destroy a Terminator like permanently. But it's like there's a sweet spot where like, boiling in like molten steel, that'll kill a Terminator. Being next to boiling steel actually gives it more power.
Can't do like Superman in the sun.
It can't like fly into the sun, but if it's like, next to a source of extreme heat, it's able to take that into itself and use it to power itself. Like, to the point where it can reboot. And that's why, that's a plot hole in that Terminator 2 movie. Like, well, yeah, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator died. How did it just reboot out of nowhere? What I like about this is that this explanation explains like another weird, not plot hole, but the detail of the first Terminator movie that I think is hilarious to point out. Because once you see it, you can never not see it. And that is that the Terminator in the first movie is always sweating. Okay, so if you go back and you rewatch Terminator 1, or watch this clip. You'll notice that the Terminator is always really moist. To achieve that effect, what they did is they covered Arnold Schwarzenegger in Vaseline before every take. And they abandoned doing this for the later movies because Arnold Schwarzenegger became a huge star and he's like, I'm not getting sprayed in the face with Vaseline for every take.
I'm just gonna say he was a worldwide like bodybuilder. He literally spent his days oiled from like head to toe.
Well, they abandoned that because it looks kind of weird. And there's like a thing about, why is the Terminator in the first movie always sweating? And the answer is that the flesh that it's covered in is, analogous to human flesh, and as well can sweat. But the internals of the Terminator are boiling hot.
He was just really nervous because it was his first film.
It's his first kill. It's his first murder. But yeah, as a result, the Terminator in the first movie is always sweating. They abandoned that for subsequent. I kind of don't like that. Because I like the idea that the Terminator is always moist. Just always moist, always sweating, always ready. To bring it back to the fact that Terminator runs faster when it's on fire, as the title suggests, it's explained in the novelization of like the Terminator films that the reason why the Terminator waits for all of its flesh to burn away before chasing Sarah, because when it emerges from the wreckage as like a skeleton instead of chasing her. The termoskeleton, yes, the endoskeleton. The novelization goes into the mind of the Terminator and explains the reasoning. The Termo mind, yes. To explain the reasoning, it says that the Terminator waits for its flesh to burn away because it knows that once the flesh has burned away, its endoskeleton is able to more easily absorb the ambient heat from the surroundings, and as a result will be able to move and function more efficiently. Meaning it is Terminator canon that the Terminator not only runs and operates better when it's like got no flesh on it, but also when it's on fire. Because the fire gives it extra power to power the ass kicking.
I mean, like just the losing the flesh alone makes sense because
the extra weight, yeah.
Extra weight it's needed for camouflage, not necessarily to make it more efficient or anything.
Yeah, if anything, it makes it more vulnerable because it's its extra weight slows it down ever so slightly.
I was kind of thinking of the Avengers moment where Tony Stark gets hit by Thor's lightning and is you've done it now.
Can you imagine that? You're in the last remnants of humanity. You manage to cobble together a flamethrower and you shoot a Terminator and all it does is run faster. So Terminators are stronger when they're on fire.
Does that mean you just start throwing ice packs at it? Just that's
Yeah, they say. Well, you see it with the T-1000, don't you? The way they stop it is they freeze it.
Yeah.
And then it breaks apart.
Is it the same for the T-1000 with his liquid metal form?
The liquid metal T-1000 is stopped by the cold.
But is it powered by the heat? Because we're talking about the
T-1000 is his own thing, but the heat and the cold affect it differently. The cold stops it from transforming, and the heat makes its form to liquid, which you see when it's melting away. It's it's trying to find a form to escape, but it can't maintain it. And that's how that dies. Heat and cold are the two things that can hurt Terminators, but it's either to be extreme heat or extreme cold. Have you ever seen that great breakdown of John Connor might be the character in fiction who's been portrayed by the most actors ever, besides Sherlock Holmes.
Every single movie has a different John Connor.
If you just discount stuff from the 50s, and you just go from the movie franchises of the Terminator and the 80s, John Connor's been portrayed by 8 different actors.
Sean Connery in Terminator 1, I can't remember.
I think they have a clip to the future.
Right.
He's a brief glimpse of him.
Yeah.
They have a brief glimpse of him in the future, and it's a different actor in every. In some films have 2 different actors playing John Connor. And I still think one of the most depressing things I've seen in regards to an actor's casting choice is for Terminator Dark Fate, where the start of that film shits on Terminator 2. At the start of Dark Fate, he's just fuck Terminator 2.
Isn't it at the end of Terminator 2 that John Connor is safe, and then as soon as the Terminator leaves, another Terminator comes in and kills him?
Yeah, but it's really funny because the Terminator walks in from off frame with a shotgun and blows him away. But what they did is they got Edward Furlong back, scanned his face in. He was like, "Oh, we're going to bring you back for Terminator Dark Fate," and he was really excited about it. And they bring him back in. He has 30 seconds of screen time as a CGI child, and they blow him away.
After the entire Terminator 2 film and all of the stuff they went through, it just ends because they relax slightly at a sunny bar or something.
That's the thing, though. Again, this is the argument. Why do you only send back one Terminator? At a time?
Yeah, and that's the thing. They sent back 2, and it turns out they just sent a second Terminator 5 seconds after the first one. That was a little bit behind the entire time, and the instant they thought they'd won, he just came and they could have got away with that by just saying 10 years later. Make it Sarah Connor got complacent after 10 years, but it's literally the next day. The next day, a Terminator walked up with a shotgun and just shot him in the back of the head.
How did they not think people would hate it? That's the thing that always amazes me about these decisions.
Yeah.
We're going to kill off the main character of the best movie in the franchise.
It's at the start of Aliens 3. How did they not think people wouldn't like that decision? Which idiot writing the script had so little respect for the previous installations of it?
I know we were going to talk about Terminator. My next question is which of these franchises has been ruined the furthest?
Terminator.
You'd argue Terminator.
Every new Terminator movie after Terminator 2 actively undoes what the previous.
Same with Aliens, though, right?
I think Jurassic Park.
I don't think, but I think with
Jurassic Park's 1 for 6.
I think Terminator 2 still takes the cake because the end of the film is we stopped Judgment Day, we changed our fates. Terminator 3 is what you think you stopped Judgment Day? Yeah. No, you didn't. Judgment Day's going to happen anyway. Then Terminator Salvation fuck it. Then Terminator Genesis is bollocks to it. We're going to redo the first 2. Judgment Day's happening again.
Yeah.
Now Skynet's a fucking internet browser.
Now it's started.
Just Skynet's just fucking Google Chrome. And then Dark Fate goes back and shits on Terminator 2 again. So each subsequent film just forgets what happened in the one previous.
I think he's got a point. I can't think of any other franchise where the sequels have ruined the previous ones.
Yeah.
There's also horror movies.
That's fair, yeah.
Because like you've got ones where it's like what Halloween and
Yeah, but the thing about
Saw that are like 9 movies in and like 8 of them are terrible or something.
But with both Halloween and Saw, the sequels don't ruin the previous ones. Like Halloween just makes him more and more indestructible.
I think they've rebooted Halloween 3 times now.
Well, yeah, they call them all Halloween, which still annoys me.
Yeah.
But then Saw, at least, like every single one adds to the lore. Like even though it gets more and more convoluted, and
It still adds to it, yeah. They don't. With Terminator, they retroactive. Like the ending of Terminator 2 is a great film, but like the fact that Dark Fate is canon to Terminator 2 means that like, you watch that film now and you have to. Do you know when you watch like Game of Thrones and people are like, oh, that House of the Dragon? I don't care how good it is when I know how it's going to end. And it's the same thing like Terminator 2. Like you watch it and all you've got in the back of your mind now is 30 seconds after this film ends, a Terminator blows like
All
John
this was
Connor.
for nothing. They might as well have just let John Connor die.
Yeah, literally 30 seconds after this. Like, you know, it should cut to black and then just like the post-credit scene, like in a Marvel movie, just be the Terminator cocking a shotgun and blowing his head off.
I know there's going to be people in the comments mention Star Wars because the sequel trilogy changed the ending of the original trilogy.
But I don't care.
But also, at least there have been other releases in that universe that people have enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like Mandalorian, and I enjoyed Obi-Wan. And
There's still a world there that's worth plumbing, whereas...
Yeah, they haven't ruined that world completely.
Yeah.
They've just made a few decisions that some people don't like.
Whereas Terminator, like the entire universe is tainted from the ground up.
Yeah, and like even with Dark Fate, the whole reason they did that is because they were like, we've ruined it so much that we're going to have to go back
Yeah.
and pretend the others didn't happen.
They made Dark Fate to undo what they did with Terminator 3 and Genesis, and then ruined it. It's like, that's the thing. They already admit, like, so they ruined it with Terminator 3, then released Genesis, which tried to course correct from Terminator 3. So, like, they try to undo Terminator 3 with Genesis, then they try to undo Genesis with Terminator Dark Fate, and then not only, like, you know, discount this, but then ruin Terminator 2 again. And it's like, God damn it!